Every small town has its legends. Some have ghosts, some have UFOs, and one is a lake that disappears every single year. That's right, not dries up, not freezes over, vanishes. One night it's there, glittering under the moonlight. The next morning, it's gone. Just cracked earth, a few stunned fish, and a lot of confused ducks. Locals don't even flinch anymore. Tourists think it's a hoax. Scientists, well, they keep coming back with notebooks full of equations and no actual answers. But maybe that's because they're asking the wrong questions. Long before anyone called it Lake Boloya, the locals called it something older, Okno Vodi, the water window, because that's what it was to them. Not a lake, not even a body of water. It was a window. Portal to something deep, a mirror between worlds. Every spring it opened, every autumn it closed. Simple as breathing. You can still find fragments of the story in old parish records from the 1700s, written in the kind of cursive that makes your eyes hurt. Farmers would talk about the lake drinking the rain. Fishermen said that if you stayed too long after dark, you'd see lights beneath the surface, like lanterns moving underwater. And then there's a story of Belle St. Nika, a little chapel that supposedly stood near the shore. Legends say it sank one night, the whole thing, bell tower and all, when the lake vanished. But every year when the waters come back, the locals swear you can hear the bell ring under the surface. In 1823, a Russian naturalist named Anton Boronov visited the area. He wasn't a suspicious man, or so he wrote. He arrived with ropes, instruments, and a horse cart full of glass jars for specimens. He wanted to prove the lake's vanishing act was purely geological, water draining through limestone fissures. He camped at the southern shore for 3 nights. Locals warned him it was the season. He laughed and wrote that peasants' tales are amusing but not persuasive, and went to bed. On the 4th morning, his camp was gone, all of it. Tents, equipment, horse, even the fence post he'd driven into the ground. The only thing they found was a single wooden box, wedged into the dried mud. His notebook inside, half dissolved, pages warped, and blank except for one line scrawled across the last page. Earth hums before it drinks. Over the next century, the story grew. Some said the lake was cursed, that it covered a pagan shrine, and each year the gods reclaimed it for a night. Others said it wasn't the lake at all, but what lived underneath it, something ancient, breathing through the ground, drawing water down like air into lungs. Think of it like the planet's version of a yawn, just a really, really big one. The villagers even held a festival for it once a year, the Night of the Empty Bowl. They'd gather around the cracked lake bed with candles and bread, leave them on the mud, and then pray for the water to come back clean. Today, it's mostly just teenagers sneaking out to take pictures, but the old folks still leave the bread, just in case. There are stories, unverified of course, about things found in the mud after the water disappears, tools that shouldn't exist, a bronze coin from a culture that never lived in that region, a carved idol burned and blackened but smooth like a river stone, even a glass bottle, sealed tight, not filled with water, just filled with air. A local historian, a woman named Vera Najitskaya, keeps that bottle locked in a cabinet at the town museum. She says it hums when the lake is gone. The bottle hums, just faintly, like it wants to go home. Then came 1984. Soviet science journalist Mikhail Petrov came to debunk the whole thing. He filmed interviews, measured groundwater levels, even brought in a hydrologist. It was supposed to be a 2-day piece for a magazine, but on the second night, his camera operator caught something unexpected. In the footage, grainy, black and white, you can see the lake lowering, not gradually, it drops, like someone pulled the plug. And then, for 2 frames, right before the lens goes white, there's movement under the water, a circular pattern, almost symmetrical, like a whirlpool, but not spiraling down. It expands outward, like something opening. The footage was archived, labeled optical illusion from reflection distortion, and never aired. But the locals remember Petrov. They say he left that night and never came back. He didn't vanish, though. He just stopped writing. as if the story had already told itself. Every mystery begins as folklore, until science tries to explain it. In this case, science did try. Oh, they had charts, equations, theories about limestone and groundwater. But as we'll find out, the more they measured, the stranger it got. Because sometimes, when you stare at the water too long, it stares back. If folklore couldn't explain the lake, then surely science could. And in 1991, it tried. A group of hydrologists from the Institute of Earth Studies in Moscow arrived, armed with clipboards, seismic gear, and the kind of enthusiasm you only get before something goes horribly wrong. They wanted to map the underground structure, the supposed network of caverns that might explain where the water went each year. Because logically, it had to go somewhere. Water just doesn't pack up and vanish, like your ex after borrowing your Netflix password. The team drilled boreholes, dropped sensors, and took water samples. Everything was standard. Until they started getting readings, it didn't make any sense. According to their data, the ground under Lake Beloya wasn't solid limestone at all. It was layered. The top 10 meters, sediment. Normal. Below that, fractured stone. Fine. Beneath that, something no one expected. A vast hollow chamber, almost symmetrical, nearly circular, and at least 200 meters wide. The sonar image looked like a bubble trapped inside the earth, and when they tested it again the following year, the chamber was gone. It collapsed, sealed, then reappeared the next season, almost like it was breathing. One of the researchers, a geophysicist named Nadia Petrova, decided to place seismic microphones around the lake bed. She wanted to record the vibrations that happened when the water drained. She expected the usual, shifting rocks, collapsing caverns. What she got was a tone. Perfect, low-frequency hum, 18 hertz. Too low for most humans to hear, but it showed up on every instrument, and it rose just before the lake disappeared. At first they thought it was a mechanical interference, maybe trucks or distant construction, but the nearest road was 40 miles away, and when they turned off every piece of equipment, the hum kept going. By the late 2000s, newer teams brought updated tools. Magnometers, GPS mapping, drones. They wanted to put the legend to bed once and for all. Instead, they found something stranger. Each time the lake drained, the local magnetic field spiked. Not enough to fry electronics, but enough to cause compass needles to spin and clocks to lose seconds. For a full hour, time itself seemed to skip. GPS logs jumped coordinates by several hundred meters, then corrected themselves once the lake refilled. So not only does the lake disappear, apparently it's taking reality with it. In 2012, an international team from Kyoto University joined the study. They set up data loggers to record everything for 3 months straight. Groundwater levels, soil density, magnetic activity. Everything was backed up hourly to 3 separate servers. But on the night the lake vanished, the files corrupted. All of them. Not a sign of hack, no power surge, just blank space where data should have been. Every file was timestamped at the exact same moment, 37 a.m. The exact minute, according to locals, that the earth started drinking again. The following year, Petrova came back alone. No team, no funding, no film crew. Just her, a tent, and a solar recorder. She wanted to stay through the entire event, to see if she could capture what others had missed. In her final recorded note, before the microphone cut out, she said, "There's a pattern. The hum isn't random, it's pulse. 3 long tones, 1 short. Like a signal or a heartbeat." The next morning, hikers found her camp, perfectly intact, tent zipped, coffee pot cold. But the recorder, still running, was buried a half a meter underground. The only thing on it was the sound of the wind, and then finally, under the noise, a voice. It's unclear what language it was, maybe static, distortion, or something else. But some say they can hear it whisper a word that sounds like below. Of course, scientists don't like ghosts, and they definitely don't like mysteries that hum at 18 hertz. So the current official explanation is boring. The lake sits on karst terrain. Porous rock that erodes, collapses, and refills with groundwater, depending on seasonal flow. Basically, a giant natural drain and refill system. And that's true, to a point. But that doesn't explain why it happens at the same time each year. Why magnetic readings fluctuate only during drainage. Or why no one's been able to map the chamber under the lake for more than a few hours before it changes shape. It's like the land is rewriting itself in real time, which, admittedly, sounds less like geology and more like something trying to stay hidden. By now, the scientists had their charts, their data, and their theories, but none of it answered the question people kept asking: what's down there? As it turned out, someone decided to find out. In 2017, a field biologist set up camp beside the lake, determined to see the draining with his own eyes. He just didn't record what happened. He heard something. And if his story is true, it changes everything we thought we knew about Lake Boyola. I said it 3 times, and I still don't think I'm saying it right. Every mystery needs one person crazy enough to chase it. For Lake Boyola, that person was Elias Morozov, wildlife biologist from Novosibirsk, I can't pronounce it, but some university. He wasn't a thrill seeker, he wasn't a ghost hunter. He just wanted to study fish. That's how every good horror story starts, isn't it? See, I was just looking for anything strange. I just wanted to count perch. Right. Elias arrived in June of 2017, peak mosquito season, when the air hums like electricity. He set up camp right at the southern edge of the lake, next to a small birch grove. He had everything: water quality sensors, night vision cameras, an old van converted into a lab. One cat, Mishka, refused to stay in the tent at night. He started recording fish populations, water temperature, pH levels, the boring stuff. But on the 3rd night, he noticed something odd. Every few minutes, the lake would ripple. Not from wind or insects, but from below, as if something were breathing under the surface. He wrote in his field journal, "The surface moves, as though it remembers something. And when it's still, it looks like an eye is just closed." By the 5th day, his sensors started glitching. The pH meters flatlined. The water level dropped a few centimeters. Then, the hum began. Not the distant mechanical tone scientists had reported. A deeper one. Closer, like the ground itself was vibrating. He described it as standing inside a heartbeat. The water started spinning, not draining down the middle, but folding in on itself. He filmed it. You can hear him whisper on the footage. "It's not going down, it's being pulled." Within an hour, the entire southern half of the lake was gone. The air turned cold, frogs went silent. Even Mishka, the cat, bolted into the trees. Elias had set up a hydrophone, an underwater microphone, days earlier. When he replayed the recording later, he found a low, rising tone followed by rhythmic pulses, almost like Morse code underwater. 3 long, 1 short, over and over. When he ran the frequencies through analysis software, the pattern matched something unexpected: blue whale communications. Same interval and tone range, except there hadn't been whales within 1,000 miles, which means something impossible was calling from below, or whale took a seriously wrong turn somewhere. Around midnight, Elias walked onto the cracked lake bed with his flashlight. It wasn't dry, not yet. The mud was soft, wet, and warm, almost like it was breathing. He crouched, pushed the beam downward, and saw something that shouldn't exist. Perfect circle, smooth, glassy, about 10 meters wide, in the middle of the mud. The rest of the ground was rough and cracked, but this one patch looked, sculpted. When he tossed a pebble into it, it didn't bounce. It sank, slow, like it was falling through syrup, and vanished. He wrote in his journal, "The air is heavy. My ears pop like before a storm. The ground moves beneath my boots, like a drum." And then, the hydrophone picked up something else. A sound like a whisper, too soft to be speech, too long to be wind. It rose, paused, and then, silence. At sunrise, hikers found Elias's van still parked by the shore, engine cold. Camera tripod sitting upright, lens cap off. Tent unzipped. Notebook on the table. Inside, his note stopped mid-sentence. "The lake is." Nothing after that. 2 days later, the water returned, clear, blue, and perfectly calm. Searchers dragged the lake with sonar and found no sign of him, no body, no equipment. Just one thing lodged in the mud, right where he'd been standing, his hydrophone. It was intact, still recording. The last 5 seconds captured a single sound, a soft, low, human sigh. The return of the lake was measured again in 2021. Scientists recorded the rise of the lake level in real time. It wasn't random. It was patterned, pulsed. Water didn't rush back. It rose in intervals, like tides, like breathing. The chemical analysis, the new water wasn't the same as it was before. Lower mineral contents, different oxygen levels, as if it came from somewhere else entirely. That's when the joke started. Maybe it's alien, maybe it's alive. Maybe the planet just doesn't want this lake anymore. Honestly, if I were the planet, I'd ghost us too. When the water came back, so did the people. By the next summer, kids were swimming again. Couples picnicked at the shore. Fishermen went back to pretending they knew what they were doing. Something had changed. They said the air felt different, cleaner, lighter, like a room that had just been aired out after years of silence. And at night, the water glowed, not bright, just a faint blue shimmer, like someone was stirring light under the surface. Locals blamed algae, scientists blamed phosphorescence, teenagers blamed TikTok filters. But one old woman sitting by the dock with a candle just said, "It's remembering." In 2022, a new survey team brought magmometers and sonar drones. They were trying to remap the chamber under the lake, the one that had eluded every team before. They succeeded for a few hours. The images showed not one cavern, but many. Interconnected tunnels, symmetrical and vast, stretching for miles beneath the region. But in the final frame, before the data froze, something flickered. A shape in the center of the largest chamber. Not rock, not void. Something dense, geometric, like a dome, or maybe an egg. Then the feed cut out. Now obviously this could all be explained. The glowing water, bioluminescence, the magnetic field fluctuations naturally occurring. Or, of course, we could be living above a sentient water hole that breathes, scientists, and occasionally gets stage fright. Honestly, that theory is starting to sound the most consistent. These days, Lake Boya is quiet again. There's a sign that says caution, unstable ground, no swimming. No one listens. Every summer it's the same. People gather, the air hums, and the ground feels just a little too hollow underneath your feet. When the sun sets over the water, there's always that moment, that brief stillness before night falls, when it almost feels like the lake is holding its breath. That's when you realize it's not the water we should be afraid of losing. It's what's waiting for it to come back. If stories like this make you wonder, if they make you laugh, squint, or double check your backyard for sinkholes, then make sure you're following Truthish. We've got plenty more stories that are mostly true and always strange. Thanks for watching.